Find home wherever you roam at Sonesta ES and Simply Suites. Stretch out and enjoy home-like amenities for however long you need. And when you're a Sonesta Travel Pass member, staying at Sonesta ES and Simply Suites means earning points toward free nights, upgrades, and more. Go to Sonesta.com and book your stay and unlock their best rates with Sonesta Travel Pass. Here today, roam tomorrow. Join now at Sonesta.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Good morning, everybody. Corey's Bloody History. We're going to continue today right where we left off with the Garrison-Sprague document. We're on page 122. And here we go. Garrison says, Father McCann has disappeared from the face of the earth as far as we... Fensterwald says he's in Europe. Oh, he is? What's he doing in Europe? Hiding out, I think. The reason I ask that, the more I look at him, the more interesting he becomes. Let me have Bill hear this, because Bill is Dallas. Bill, Father McCann has been located. Not specifically. No, he's in Europe, but I think I know how to locate him if we had any reason to go that far. Is he still a father? In more ways than one. Yes, he was sleeping apparently with 3 different women in Dallas at the same time. Boy, that's what I call a father. There's a reverend after my own heart. Has anyone ever seen a picture of him? I've never seen a picture. Does he still wear a white collar and everything? That's as good as being with the CIA, isn't it? The more you look at him, the more he had advance notice of the assassination because he gave up the Cuban community's spiritual needs on about October 29th. Now that's a beautiful cover for an operator. But he gave it up and resigned and left town. But by the day of the assassination, he was back in Dallas. At the time of the shooting, he was watching a television set in his family's home in Dallas, and he saw the shooting over the television. Now, I didn't even know that the parade was being shown on television in Dallas, but apparently it was. It was not. It was not. Well, then part of the story is phony. Well, in any event, he had a nervous breakdown as of November 22nd and had himself put into an institution, or somebody put him in one. That's interesting. That guy may become more significant. Now it makes sense. We heard of the nervous breakdown, but probably the government taking care of him. There were 2 other women. There was a woman by the name of Marianne Ramus, R-A-M-U-S, and another woman by the name of Joanne. Ramos Dugos. No. But yeah, that could be his sister. I don't think so. This woman was not a Cuban. She was American. Her husband was a baseball player. He was probably CIA, and I base it on this. Not only do they know priests cover an awful lot, but they do? Does the Roman Church go along with this game? Yes, sir. That's one of the oldest intelligence apparatus in the world, the Roman Catholic Church. Fighting communism. What do they got to lose by it? Who's more opposed to communism? Boxley says, the church makes excellent meeting places, and they've got all the facilities. They've already got the underground communication system. Garrison says, let me put it this way. You show me a priest who's screwing half the women in town, and I'll show you a government agent. Well, he ties into this another way. You see, he was over there in an area. He ties through the anti-Castro Cuban meetings, which were being held on Hill Street at the block from the Ducarme Club. And it's also a half a block from where Larry Smith moved in. And that's also where these guys went on the day of the assassination, wasn't it? They were missing. Is the owner still missing? Yeah, the owner's still missing. A couple of years now, isn't it? He pulled out, but they were, Larry Smith admitted to Pat Swank of Life magazine that he was CIA. Billings said he has it on tape by a mutual agreement that they didn't print it in the article. That's the best way to handle something like that. He came to Dallas under the United Press cover, which is the traditional like the church and the CIA. It's even in Oswald's notebook. UP is all over the place. This girl was UP, wasn't she? The one who's married to the McMillan. Yeah. She moved into an apartment next to Ruby's stripper named Robin Hood. Ruby had a stripper named Robin Hood? That's fucking great. Ruby had 2 or 3 strippers in his apartment house at 4015 Simpson. Larry Smith moved into the middle of them, and they set up operations at the Charm Club. Well, anyhow, Father McCann was in the area with the Cuban meetings. They've torn the house down. What's the scenario we've got here? Father McCann and Robin Hood. It gets wild. What about a guy named Charles Kropp? K-R-O-P. That sounds familiar. Yeah, I heard that. Well, you should have heard it. He's a Chicagoan with ties to Shaw and Ferrie. Oh, he called us about a year ago. Is that where you got that? From a short memo? Yeah. I recently came across it in reviewing the files, and he said that, I think before the assassination, he'd been working with some Cubans in an anti-Castro operation, fundraising or something. And they insisted in New Orleans that Shaw and Ferrie were connected with them. We wanted to get more information from him, but he said he was afraid to give us any more information, and he backed out. And that's the, well, I think I can get the guy to move him, because he's made a tape conversation at the request of the FBI and sent the FBI a copy of it. This was before the assassination. He didn't think about this again until you reopened your investigation. He still's got the tape. That would be great. It will not screw up anything if I make, well, you know, I didn't know what you had done with it and didn't want to. He got scared to death, and we usually put them on the side and hope that they will relax a little. All right. I got a guy in Chicago that might be able to do him, because the hard-nosed approach doesn't do any good. How about a guy named August Stinovich? Oh, they're talking about Augustinovich. Yeah. I think he's company in a sense, and it doesn't, it's mostly bullshit as far as coming through with anything. Wasn't he a plant, maybe? Yeah, that figures. The guy who came in with the name of Augustinovich. What's his name? Calvin Bull. I was sitting here, and he brought into me, and I'm not particularly good at judging people, but in less than 5 minutes, I knew he was a plant or full of shit or both. In other words, that was nothing. He was put on us like the guy Maze was. M-A-Z-E. I got a rap sheet. He's not company, basically, because he's got a rap sheet as long as your arm. Boxley, FBI. Well, they got a hold of him over there. He played a part. He was just trying to lead you down the garden path, I think. Just tell him what you told me now. Barnett had a death in the family. Barnett, the guy who was coming. His mother died 2 weeks ago, apparently in an emergency. He's going to contact you. Got some tapes on the whole proceedings. I don't know whether he wants to play the whole thing or not. Not all of it, just the flavor. What's this note about Leon Charles? He'd like to get together with you, so he'll call you. Both Shaw and Barnett are going to contact you sometime in the next month. Can play as much as we'll listen to sections. What real difference does it make when you think about it, though? What? If people out there listen, I'm not security conscious anymore. The only thing I'm not going to do is leave stuff around where they can destroy it. That's all. If this Larry Smith was company, Larry Schmidt, you mean? This puts a new light on the whole ballgame. He came in and took over YAF, National Indignation Convention. YAF is H.L. Hunt's pet. I was on Cupshaw with him in July. He was up there on YAF to promote it. What's YAF? Young Americans for Freedom. We had this gal come up, the well-scrubbed all-American girl. Hall refers to them constantly. He apparently is a bagman type that works. He could be intermediary between Hunt and the operational level. Sure, I think individuals like this are closely connected with the Pax Americana organization. It's its lifeblood. Garrison says, sure, it's not all military. It's an organism that you have to destroy communism all over the earth or it will destroy you. That way is assured that none of these people can see that it's only a thing that will be destroyed by this is America. That's all. If you do nothing but think of it as financial terms alone, nothing else, it's costing $500,000 to kill. You're going to tell me about the demise of Jack Perrin. This has always been real intriguing to me. Bob Perrin. Well, in other words, while I mentioned to go to Bud that just maybe if you look into it deeply enough, you find the lines leading to the federal government one way or another. Robert Perrin turns out to have been killed in New Orleans. Suicide, according to the police. Arsenic, voluntarily consumed. But let me tell you some of the circumstances. This was roughly in October of 1962. By the time the missiles were discovered in Cuba, but before the Demalma, is that what that says? In other words, it may not or may be connected with that. His background was that. That was that base in the Midwest. Joe Palmer learned that he had previously served at some base in the Midwest. I can't remember the name right now. What, a military base? Yeah, he was sent there and inquired about him and found a whole operation is awful of naval intelligence. See, in other words, again, you have that line. It's just too much. Every individual involved in that line comes in there somehow. You end up with this guy in New Orleans, and Nancy Perrin, at the time, now she's Nancy Perrin Rich Hamilton, where Hamilton of Promise fame. So we have a connection between Kennedy and Promise, which is wild. Where is she? She's up in New Hampshire. But one thing interesting about it, she obviously knows what it's all about. In other words, she's not scared like a person is scared of some nameless dread. Her fear is very specific fear, that the government will kill her, too. That's her attitude. She's the one that was followed up around here by private detectives. She knows what it's all about. She says, I'm not going to come down there and get killed. They'll kill me, too, in effect. Well, they could kill her in New Hampshire just as easily. Yeah, but she wouldn't move. So we finally dug up the auto pay report. I don't know why the hell it took so long, but it had been misfiled in the coroner's office anyway. I tried to get that when I first came down here, and I got nothing but static over there. Garrison says, I've been pushing low on it, and they finally came up with it. And here's the interesting thing. And I talked with Bill, and it seems to indicate an intelligence way of murdering somebody. The police get a call about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the man's voice saying, help, I must get help, come over here. 1713 Calhoun Street before it's too late. I've taken something like that. And they come over to the house, is all dark and locked, and finally they gain entrance. They hear somebody moaning in the room, and they gain entrance through a back door, and they get in the room and turn on the light. And there's a guy in his bed dying, and they have either fumes all over the room, and they have on the floor in the bed is a can of ether with some kind of homemade mask there. You smell ether all over. And they take him away, and he dies at 6 o'clock in the morning. And at the autopsy, they open him up, and he's full of arsenic. 4 grams. So it appears to be Bill's remarks, but it appears that either fumes serve 2 things. First of all, it's a way of knocking him out so you can pour arsenic down his throat with some kind of bulb or something like that. And secondly, it causes the police right away to say, look at this jerk. The guy was inhaling ether, and then they haul him off. So they don't go for more toxic substances. Yeah, I feel like it's too much for one evening for a man to go for the ether and the arsenic, and everybody laughs. They can control a degree of a guy's unconsciousness. Now, if he's totally unconscious, they can't get the arsenic down him, but they can knock him out enough that he will swallow it automatically. Why didn't they remove the ether? Because they wanted it to appear that he was on ether, that he had he had a number of puncture marks. No stomach pump or anything. Also, it obscures the smell of the arsenic. That's a strong smell, isn't it? Yeah, it would do that. He had, however, a cut inside of his throat, some contusions. I personally think they just shoved a tin funnel in his throat and poured the arsenic in when they got him to the point of control. By either they wanted, the funnel or something of that nature would have created the cuts in his throat. Now, there's no container in the room that had arsenic in it. There was no container in the bed or anywhere in the room that he could have drunk from. Just a homemade mark over an old chocolate nutriment can with either fumes in it. Do people breathe ether as pleasure? No, I was wondering if he could have been taking it to come off of something is redacted here. He had a number of punctures in the veins as if he were addicted, and probably he was. And I've been asking them around to see if an addict will try coming off of it, kicking it with ether, like a drunk will try coming off of booze with formaldehyde, but I don't know. Well, it's really terribly relevant one way or another. It doesn't really matter as long as they put the can't here. Any arsenic found in the house? None whatsoever. That's an interesting thing. None whatsoever. Nothing that had arsenic in it, but he's full of it inside. And furthermore, the question is, how was he able to make the call? By the time they get there, the guy's unconscious and moaning. Redacted, run down and lock his doors. Or maybe he locked it before he turned the lights off. He had no phone in the room. But there's some interesting information about that. Nancy Perrin Rich gave us some additional info about that because he got mad at the idea and wanted to talk to her. Why did she get mad at that? I don't know. She was sweating it out or something. She said, you tell Garrison to leave me alone or I'll get Arthur Weiss on him. Remember Novelle's Weiss, Arthur. Or I'll get Captain Bradley of the state police on him. So there's your company man with the state police. That's why we can't get a copy of Ferrie's memorandum.
You ever feel that deep pull to the land, to know it, to build something that lasts, that itch for your own wild country? Well, it ain't just a daydream. In 2025, it matters more than ever. Whether you're a lifelong hunter or just starting out, Dreaming of land to explore, to leave something real? Or there is a trailhead where you can start. It's called land.com, the biggest online network for rural property. Find the right agent and explore everything from timber tracts to ranches. Get the tools you need to buy that dream generational property. Stop dreaming about it and head to land.com. It's your place to find your open space.
Travel smarter, not harder, at America's Best Value Inn by Sonesta, with convenient locations from coast to coast and value-packed comfort at every turn. And when you're a Sonesta Travel Pass member, staying at America's Best Value Inn means earning points toward free nights, upgrades, and more. Go to Sonesta.com to book your stay and unlock their best rates with Sonesta Travel Pass. Here today, roam tomorrow. Join now at Sonesta.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Ooh, Captain Bradley of the state police, they're saying is CIA. Was he judged suicide or murder? Suicide, but the police officer who wrote it, and the police usually don't look below the surface, but this police officer wrote the thing that to indicate or point out some of these questions like container for arsenic could not be found. Didn't the coroner look at him? The coroner said he died from arsenic poisoning. Yeah, but did he rule it also as suicide? They don't rule here. They don't rule that here. The cause is arsenic. But the police didn't go any further in trying to find out who murdered him. This is SOP in New Orleans. When we say good report, we mean relatively. In other words, this is better than Dallas, but it's not like the professionals as it should be. This was the end of it, and they go on to the next case. Not as good as Monroe or Baton Rouge. I don't understand Nancy Rich's antagonism towards your office. If she told all the story to the Warren Commission, she told Mark Lane the thing. Aren't you glad, though? She told us more than she told the Warren Commission in a way. Boxley says she's afraid we'll ask her how it is that J.D. Tippett sent for her to come to Dallas. Let's see. That's another thing. We've been going through her testimony again, and it's become apparent that what's happened was, here's what happened, and here's what Chrisman knows Tippett. Whoa. When her husband leaves, Bob Perrin, and she can't find him, so she thinks he may be in Dallas, so she calls the police department. She calls Tippett. Why does she call Tippett? It's not spelled out, but I think the probability is because Tippett is a friend of her husband. Her husband is previously at an ONI base. Tippett used to work with Ling Tempio. Fred Lee Chrisman knows Tippett. Fred Lee Chrisman is with Boeing. You see, the whole structure is... You know what this fits in with now, right? What? Ferrie said that Tippett was one of the guns on the roof. That's blatantly false. He was standing on Houston Street. God damn it, you're going to have... I'll tell you who else who's been fantastic in this analysis, except for what I considered the one blind spot. This is Yerston, whose pure analysis has been awfully good. Yerston says that this is ridiculous, and I never gave it any thought, but the rest of it, his analytical mind seems to be first class. Tippett in the window and nobody in the window. Tippett could have been the guy on the roof with the Mauser. Yeah, he could. Doesn't matter where. It's somewhere from the building that they were shooting. Okay, so guys, just to make this really clear, this is wrong because I know they're speculating, but Tippett was captured in the Robert Hughes film standing on Houston Street. So there you go. He wasn't a shooter at all. He was standing on Houston Street. Tippett could have been the guy on the roof with the Mauser. Yeah, he could. Doesn't matter where. It was somewhere in the building that they were shooting. Do you remember the Captain Blake said, oh, here was a security guard on the roof across the mall. Just saw you're saying that nobody on the 6th floor window. I just happened to think of something else that hit me. I came across one of the people's testifying about the man on the 6th floor. Was that Arnold Rowland? Right. Arnold Rowland had no address, but he had a post office box in Dallas, and he'd just gotten that post office box a day or two before the assassination. What do you think of that? We've always treated him, we're getting back on our paranoia again. I guess you're right. Basically, this was a helpful witness because he points to two guys up there. But what he's really doing, probably, they changed scenarios. You know, at the beginning, they have a Cuban plot. They were trying to tie Oswald in not only to Cuba, but Russia. And somewhere they had to change of plans. And Roland may not have handled his assignment right because on the 22nd, he had no address. When they went to the place he was supposed to live, he didn't live there anymore. His forwarding address was the post office box. Where was he living? I don't know. So it reflects on Mayor Cabell and Chief Curry, all of them. So he suspects. Tape is being recorded at a much lower pace, something, some miscellaneous notes. So he suspects Roland also. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that, but I separately recently came across Roland with a post office box, and it rang a bell, and I dug into it, and he wasn't living at the house where he was supposed to live anymore. You know, the guy who screwed them all up was Jarrell, because of the gunfire scared him, and he ran around the corner, and he sees a guy running out of the back door. So he had to have a bike accident. So they killed him, or somebody killed him. Anyway, that interesting thing, it gets back to Robert Perrin. He's not only seemed to have this background, which is connected with naval intelligence in one sense, with J.D. Tippit in the other. Here in New Orleans, he had a connection with some kind of Louisiana State Police. So I think there's only one organization in the country, in the world really, which touches base with O&I and J.D. Tippit and the Louisiana State Police. And that's the Central Intelligence Agency. It has these different forms. When they reported the suicide, they didn't report it to city police. The guy called the state police. They delayed things too. So you can put Tippit possibly as one of the riflemen. Possibly. I think it's quite possible. This hits this testimony redacted, but he still is driven there from the building at the time they saw him. Do you have any way of checking on Weiss and that name? Trying to check on it now. Police reports it is Wise, but they don't know yet. Seymour Wise was the head of the Roosevelt Hotel.
You ever feel that deep pull to the land, to know it, to build something that lasts, that itch for your own wild country? Well, it ain't just a daydream. In 2025, it matters more than ever. Whether you're a lifelong hunter or just starting out, dreaming of land to explore, to leave something real, or there is a trailhead where you can start. It's called land.com, the biggest online network for rural property. Find the right agent and explore everything from timber tracts to ranches. Get the tools you need to buy that dream generational property. Stop dreaming about it and head to land.com. It's your place to find your open space.
Find home wherever you roam at Sonesta ES and Simply Suites. Stretch out and enjoy home-like amenities for however long you need. And when you're a Sonesta Travel Pass member, staying at Sonesta ES and Simply Suites means earning points toward free nights, upgrades, and more. Go to Sonesta.com and book your stay and unlock their best rates with Sonesta Travel Pass. Here today, roam tomorrow. Join now at Sonesta.com. Terms and conditions apply.
What do you know about the man named Mike Barclay? I've seen the name on a report or something, but I can't place it. He was a big buddy of Jack Ruby's, and he was in Dealey Plaza. That's interesting. I don't know anything about him other than that. On Roland, I had to make a note. God damn, they had more people working for them in 1963. Is there any possibility that Ed Collins was in Dealey Plaza that day? The one who was killed in 4 foot of water. Yeah, because Steve Wilson and Dennis Haver took him out. They drowned him off of Miami. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't ever do that. Because I'm convinced that Ed Collins is the one who was standing on the fucking corner with Oswald in New Orleans. Is that what happened to him? Yeah, and they must have drowned him for some reason because he was a fairly harmless character in their league. He was supposed to be a pretty good swimmer. Well, he was a skin diver, among other things. That's a good thought. I knew he died under odd conditions, but I didn't necessarily relate it to Dallas. Well, Steve Wilson and Dennis Harbor. That's one of the reasons I should get a hold of Harbor, what he's so damn shook up about. Where'd you get this information? I picked this up from Miami police. They have a report on the guy. Are they sure it was not accidental? They are sure as we are in the case of Perrin. It could be accidental, but the only thing in the report is that sounded like they might have been accidental. It might have been drinking, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to jump off a boat and drown if you happen to be a good swimmer. What about the name Dombrowski? This is the last living genuine liberal in New Orleans. This is the last commie in New Orleans, and everyone laughs. Garrison says, that's right, I don't think he's a communist, but he was, in his time, liberal enough, so he almost was whenever he gets sick, the FBI, I'm sure, sends a doctor over to his house. They must have 200 or 300 banks of telephones. This is true. They must have 200 or 300 banks of telephones in the sound room because Dombrowski lives in New Orleans and he can't even get out of the house without crutches, and there are no meetings for him to go to because if he's a communist, he's the only one in the city. And they have the sound room with all these things. It's unbelievable. And every year the man has to get more money because the communists are increasing. Dombrowski is the nearest thing to a communist left in New Orleans. So anytime something comes up, they throw his name into it. Oswald, in the questioning you'll find in the early stages, did he have any connection with Dombrowski? Martello asked him when he picked him up from the passing out the leaflets. Martello is a man of no mentality at all, and you can see in his testimony and his idea of the plot as something involving Dombrowski. He was Bannister's right-hand man. Reisman apparently is liberal, and quite possibly from the liberal structure of the CIA, for all we know, but they use him as a decoy because of the leaflets we found near Reisman's house. If you go up there on the scene, you find there just as near who's the right wing in town, the publisher, Kent Courtney. In other words, Kent Courtney has a printing press, and they are about half a block from Kent Courtney's printing press, but they would lead to element involved in the whole thing. So they're trying to block half a block in other directions. They find a liberal professor. So you have many pages of questioning about Professor Reisman and the whole FBI investigation of him when he goes out on the West Coast, and the leaflets were probably printed in Kent Courtney's press. The Secret Service tried to talk with Reisman, but the Bureau pulled them off. They said, leave him alone, we're watching him. As if it were a security aspect of the case. Well, why is Bill Barry not interested in Dombrowski? Boxley says, somebody snaked him. Say, Barry, can you give one of the other instances, though, that will substantiate Collins' death if he hasn't already? They did shoot the guy on No Name Key and called the sheriff's office out and came about from what the body, and they said, well, we're hunting turkeys, and somebody mistook him for a pigeon. Who was that guy, do you know? He's got the name and everything. Is that the end of the police investigation? That's the end of it right there. He was shot and his family. That sounds like the Dallas investigation. What do we know about somebody named Mario who might have been in Dealey Plaza? Marino is, I think, according to Patrick, which makes it unreliable. The purchaser of arms for Rich Lockley in the Miami area. Is that where you get that from? I think so. I'll tell you what's happening. Somebody's feeding him a bunch of names that George Butler fed me in Dallas in the summer of '67. Dombrowski, Marino, Ruth Payne. They got him tied up with this. How about the name D.H. McFadden? Now, McFadden is the guy who was staying in Dallas. No, let's not leave Marino for a second. No, McFadden. That's what the memo is so unusual about a guy waking up in the morning about 2 or 3 o'clock and he hears guys moving. One of them says, well, it's done. And the other guy says, be quiet. This guy may be still awake. And they're moving out and he gets curious and goes to look in their quarters and he finds a couple 30 caliber cartridges and naturally he reports it. And that's the end of it. But there's a commission exhibit on this subject, which is unusual, assuming they haven't twisted everything and changed it around. Here, I have it, Open Dallas Leads. Yeah, I found out what's important about that address, Jim. Here it is. William Anderson and D.H. McFadden. If there is a D.H. McFadden, it can be very important because D.H. McFadden was one of the guys who rented the cottage where the bullets were found. Where'd you pick up the name? From the exhibits? I don't know. Everybody keeps asking me where I picked this stuff up, and I don't know. Garrison said, well, you better take a look at this one because if they haven't changed the facts on it. That's on Kelton Street, isn't it? Well, anyhow, he had a room in Dallas on November 22nd. After he checked out, shells were found in his room. Mysterious character. I got this from Lauren Hall's memo. Wonder where he got that. I don't know. It's from your files. That's why I asked you. Where Joe Cody lived. That's the thing I was trying to tell you on the phone the other day. Joe Cody lived on Ann Arbor at the time. Were you going to make note of that on 3-inch space that I left because it's very important? They might have had an adjustment to move it away from Joe Cody or something. Yeah, or that was the operational base. Maybe Cody found the place for them to rent. Yeah, that's too close to Joe Cody because it was probably Joe Cody's truck that was used. Joe Cody flew out of Dallas on Sunday. How about Enrique Molina? False lead, do you think? I don't know whether it's false or not. I just know that it's the Hunt group that was trying to put me onto Molina. If that's the Molina who works the depository. No, it's not the same one. I've seen this other Molina come up, but I don't think that's the one at the depository apparently had nothing to do with it. Incidentally, this thing about Steve Wilson, Dennis Harbour, and Ed Collins had more significance than just Ed Collins possibly being at the plaza. This is the no-name Key Group, what's left of Patrick's Raiders. Ed Collins is in that picture on the sheriff's office steps, you know. Oh, really? That's a good, clear picture of these guys. Ed Collins being on the steps in Dealey Plaza, I'm going to have to do some digging into that. I didn't know where it came from, but what Rose said was that Collins had breakfast with Lee Harvey Oswald at Nellie Hamilton's boarding house. Who the fuck is Nellie Hamilton? All right. Diana, if you're listening, we need to dig into this. Nellie Hamilton's boarding house and Ed Collins in Dallas' connection to Lee Harvey Oswald. Where did we pick that up? That sounds familiar. Came out of Miami somewhere. Rose picked it up on his notes, whether it came from Martin Xavier, Casey, or who. I know where it came from. It came from the other Gene Bradley, the pilot. Leslie Bradley, yeah. Did you interview him? No, but Rose apparently picked it up. He's apparently working for Lehigh, Comet Now in Miami. Who talked to him? Boxley, did you? Nope. Didn't talk to him here? Nope. To Bradley? Yeah, they talked to him in his office, but I guess I was gone. Do you think he's involved in any way? No, I don't think so. That cement is interesting, though, because Sylvia Odio had been supported financially for years by Rogers and Ferrie. Ferrie is the cement man in Miami, and he and Rogers, who has Texas Industries, were supplying the cement to build missile silos in Cuba. Say that's right. And the mercenaries are involved in that business too. And the mercenaries are sponsors of J. Edgar Hoover. They owe him. In other words, when he becomes something to a party of mercenaries, he mixes the drinks and everybody laughs. You know the story of this manager of the hotel where they have this chili party out there, big bowls of chili around the Murkinson and Sid Richardson and Hoover sitting there, and they are slopping up the chili, telling dirty jokes, and Sid Richardson was an uncouth bastard. He says, Edgar, get off your ass and get me another bowl of chili. Edgar gets off his ass and gets a bowl of chili. That was the relationship of and subserviency of the director of the FBI to Sid Richardson and Murkinson and those guys. Boxley says, that's why I was interested in Sirhan's racetrack operations, because the Murkinsons owned that racetrack out there. That's interesting. They own the Delmire. They've got the lease in Delmire. Wasn't he working up at Hollywood Park? Might have been. Did you ever hear of a Mr. Castor? Mr. Castor knows a lot about Sylvia Odio. Robert Castor? Yeah, she's in Arlington now. That's the one that Harold Weisberg keeps calling from. Fensterwald says, anyway, she relates that Rogers took in Sylvia Odio after an operation, and she lived in the house. Consequent to that, Mrs. Rogers asked Mrs. Castor who she should go tell some information about the assassination to, and Mr. Castor sends her none other than your old buddy, George Butler, and George Butler subsequently had many meetings with Mrs. Rogers and with this Mary Ann, can't think of her last name. Did you ever meet with Sylvia Odio, or do you know her? Is that why Sylvia Odio is so uptight now? I don't know, but I don't think so. The indications are because she moved out of Dallas shortly after and went to Puerto Rico. Have you told these gentlemen about the false Sylvia yet? What?
You ever feel that deep pull to the land, to know it, to build something that lasts, that itch for your own wild country? Well, it ain't just a daydream. In 2025, it matters more than ever. Whether you're a lifelong hunter or just starting out, dreaming of land to explore, to leave something real, or there is a trailhead where you can start. It's called land.com, the biggest online network for rural property. Find the right agent and explore everything from timber tracts to ranches. Get the tools you need to buy that dream generational property. Stop dreaming about it and head to land.com. It's your place to find your open space.
Travel smarter, not harder, at America's Best Value Inn by Sonesta, with convenient locations from coast to coast and value-packed comfort at every turn. And when you're a Sonesta Travel Pass member, staying at America's Best Value Inn means earning points toward free nights, upgrades, and more. Go to Sonesta.com to book your stay and unlock their best rates with Sonesta Travel Pass. Here today, roam tomorrow. Join now at Sonesta.com. Terms and conditions apply.
No, I visited Sylvia Odio in Chicago, but it turns out it wasn't Sylvia Odio. It wasn't? No. Everybody has described her as a beautiful woman. The woman I talked to was short, dumpy, and ugly. She's supposed to be luscious. Well, this woman was not only not luscious, she'd never even been in her younger days. You were just mad because you couldn't make any progress. I couldn't even get her to talk with me, and everyone laughed. Well, you had the wrong Sylvia Odio then. I had somebody who pretended to be Sylvia Odio and answered to the name Sylvia Odio. I heard she was in Evanston. This was in South Chicago Street, Lod Street, and she answered to the name of Sylvia, and her husband answered to the name of Guillermo Mohara, and they looked at a whole bunch of pictures, including from the no-name Key and so forth, and Hall and Seymour and Howard, and just shook their heads and wouldn't discuss it, and that was sort of the end of it. I think she's back in Puerto Rico. I think she's in San Juan. She's not the woman I talked to, but someone is going to the trouble of posing as her. That's goofy, isn't it? It is goofy, but the whole thing's goofy, so that means she's very important if they've done that. Well, she made a whole bunch of lies and a whole bunch of false testimony, and that's her big problem. I think Oswald did actually call on Sylvia Odio. Nope, sure didn't. I'll tell you what I think they did. I think she probably said was essentially true when they got through changing it around in Roger Craig's testimony. They made 23 different changes, and the 23rd change was, do you want a copy after this? It's typed, and he said yes, and it was changed to no. In other words, they literally did whatever they wanted to with it, so they probably grabbed her as to meaning, and it's probably quite significant. Oswald comes in with two other guys when they finish the description, and you can't tell who they were. Okay, so just to reiterate, I don't know how the fuck Garrison didn't know this, but the Sylvia Odio visit was William Seymour, Lauren Hall, Lawrence Howard. Okay? Lauren Hall admitted this. I have the document. So, I think it's also possible that she's company and that she made up this whole thing too. This is a big key to analyzing, and that's where Farrar comes in. You know Farrar's real name? It's not Max Farrar. Don't you bet on it. Oh, really? Paul's really trying to shield him now, and it's the same family. Are you sure? And that's what did he die of? I didn't know he was dead. Oh, he's dead. Boxy says Kiki Farrar. Last year or so. What did he die of? I don't know. Pneumonia or something. He has a dentist brother, Kiki Mass Farrar. Now I asked Hall that, and I said, now this Kiki Farrar in Dallas is different from the Kiki Mass Farrar in Miami. And what did he say? He said yes. I think he said they are two different people. I don't believe so, but I couldn't prove it. He seemed to be telling us the truth in most areas. Who? Hall. He really did. He changed his story considerably through the years. I'll tell you what I think they did. I think they structured Hall and Howard into the thing, and I don't think they told us the whole truth, but I think they told us as much as they could, but got screwed on it. I don't think they had a thing to do with the setup, but their names were thrown in, so anybody journeying... God damn it, fucking Garrison. Oh my God, you're so disappointing. So disappointing. Jesus fucking Christ, Garrison. You have a picture of the fucking guy. Journeying into there spends a year wrestling with Hall, Howard, or Sylvia Odio. I mean, it's just another decoy. That's what I think it is. How about Emmanuel Taurus? Emmanuel Taurus, that's the one I found, isn't it? That's the one that Croman kept saying was one of the gunmen. The Taurus brothers. Oh, he's talking about the brothers who went up there allegedly with Frank Sturgis. It's another bullshit story. I think Croman is totally out of it except when he quotes what Nagel, which has some authority. He misquotes. I mean, he gets it somewhat garbled because of the time sequence. He could not possibly be. Where do we have the name Emmanuel Taurus? We came across that before. I know, but we've had Miguel Taurus. You may be getting it mixed up. Can I interrupt for a minute? I really should go back with both Bud and I with some kind of recommendation to Mrs. Pomerantz on how the hell we can make use of her connections, money, or whatever. She's connected with all the liberal organizations and knows everybody in them, as far as I can tell, pretty well. She's also not only got a lot of money of her own, but all the people that she knows seem to have a lot of money. Now, I haven't been able, except for saying just keep writing out checks and supporting some kind of... These people aren't going to do anything. They haven't done anything for the past 5 years. I don't think they will do anything now, but she suggested. She said something about Americans for Democratic Action was going to put through a resolution. Hell, any resolution anybody puts through it is better than nothing. But to be blunt about it, I can't think of anything more effective than money to keep the investigation going. Boxley, it's the best thing in the world. Garrison, we're constantly running out of it. If these people aren't going to do something on their own, aren't concerned enough to have anything done about it by now, they aren't going to do anything anyway. Not true. No, they haven't had the opportunity of being exposed to us. Maybe you're right, Bill. I just think feeling that, my God, if there's anything that's clear, it's the government's false position on the assassination in media. It's clear to you and me that they are beginning to realize it now. I don't think we should prejudge their intentions. I'm glad to hear you say, because I would like nothing better than to be wrong on this point. Well, a couple of things have happened. One, there have been 2 assassinations. The last one really shook them up. That's a good point. And 2, there are a whole new anti-war liberal movement that's just really gained a head of steam in the last 6 to 10 months that's separate and apart from the old liberal establishment, the establishment liberals. These people are the ones, they have a lot of money. What do you think can be done? I think we should, maybe someone can start maybe something can be started and that will snowball. That's it. I think we should do everything possible to educate the people, like this lady. She was kind enough to bring us down here at considerable expense in order to get us together. I certainly, that shows definite good intentions, and I think that there is a very definite possibility that when I say these assassinations are synergistic, that is exactly what I mean, that they may be able to stand on one, maybe barely 2, but it gets to 3. Well, you know, is there anything more arrogant than to have the 3rd one occur while we're investigating the last one? The consciousness of their power, unbelievable. And especially if this turns out that Ernesto Puget was at 3. I don't know whether he fired all the shots, all of them, but if he were all 3 of them, boy. Okay, I don't know this name. Ernesto Puget, P-U-G-E-T. Ernesto Puget. I don't know why he's talking about him, but he's talking about him as the kind of a shooter, I guess. Is that your new name for Frenchie? I'd say we've got to see Mrs. Wright. Yeah, I think we ought to touch base with her. Okay, so Frenchie, I'll call him that until we're sure, and we don't know whether he was... These guys never made this connection at all. The short tramp is Vincent Calderon Jr., and they never made this connection. God, I wish I could fucking sit down with Garrison and have a conversation with the fucking guy. He came so close on so many things. I'd say we got to see Mrs. Wright. Yeah, I think we ought to touch base with her. Frenchie, I'll call him that until we're sure. And we don't know whether he was at all 3, except there is a good chance he was at the King one. Whether there was a good chance about Robert Kennedy, I don't know. But he's the guy I'd sure go after hammer and tongs. If the money is forthcoming in sufficient quantities, I think we can put an organization together to work parallel with yours. That would be good. And we could do a lot of things that you can't, because for the very thing we brought up earlier, if you send someone up to Birmingham, you're nothing but a smartass again and so forth. There are certain things in a governmental group that a government can't, and vice versa, and only I am aware of. But if they will come with any sufficient money, and thought of them has occurred, and it's half-baked thought, we haven't really done much considering that we might be able to, in time, embarrass the government into reopening all 3 of these cases by having what would amount to a set of public hearings. Take Fraser alone. The Fraser situation alone is overwhelming. We're going to have to get a hearing and volunteer witnesses, and going to have to interest the press for them to come. I think it's a great idea. If we could get money to support it, we might do it. One thing they can't stand: a private hearing conducted in Washington. As Bud says, you wouldn't have to present some grand feat. You don't have to telegram who's coming in tomorrow, you know. Perhaps it could be here to protect itself. Perhaps it would revive this competition of the press, because if the other side gets the story, maybe you could make a deal with either AP or UP to tell them in advance who the next witnesses were. Even NBC might do that. It would drive the rest of them crazy if one knew and the rest didn't. That would be very interesting. I'll tell Fraser that thing cannot be explained, that alone. Well, there's a whole bunch of things. If you go down through this whole long list of witnesses, what the girls' names and whose testimony was changed, Julianne Mercer, she would make a great witness. Marilyn Moret's testimony was changed. The only thing, theoretically, Julianne Mercer would make a great witness. In reality, she's like so many of them, frozen with fear. Let the public see that too, if you can get her on. She's frozen. Roger Craig would probably make a good witness. If you think through the thing, you can think a whole lot of... The thing to do first would be to start with some other investigative structure if possible. It would serve another function if its existence became solid. One of our problems as we go along is that being the last investigation decreases our chance for survival. In other words, as it stands now, they can remove us from office or remove me. Well, then that's the end of any inquiry, but there's another one going. If there's just one more going, that's all effective, like in Washington, then I'm not the only one in the world. And that'll take the pressure off of you too. All right. It looks like we're going to get into some different and changing subject matter here. So I'll go ahead and I'll call it here for the day. Thank you, everybody. I will be back probably on Wednesday, where we'll continue this. I want to knock this out in the next 4 or 5 episodes so we can move on to something else. Get back to some Harvey and Lee. But that's going to do it for me, guys. And I will see you on Wednesday.
You ever feel that deep pull to the land, to know it, to build something that lasts, that itch for your own wild country? Well, it ain't just a daydream. In 2025, it matters more than ever. Whether you're a lifelong hunter or just starting out, dreaming of land to explore, to leave something real, or there is a trailhead where you can start. It's called land.com, the biggest online network for rural property. Find the right agent and explore everything from timber tracts to ranches. Get the tools you need to buy that dream generational property. Stop dreaming about it and head to land.com. It's your place to find your open space.
Travel smarter, not harder, at America's Best Value Inn by Sonesta, with convenient locations from coast to coast and value-packed comfort at every turn. And when you're a Sonesta Travel Pass member, staying at America's Best Value Inn means earning points toward free nights, upgrades, and more. Go to Sonesta.com to book your stay and unlock their best rates with Sonesta Travel Pass. Here today, roam tomorrow. Join now at Sonesta.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.